Finally, let's study clothes. Take a look at the finished product. Clothes includes dresses, pants, shoes, hat, collar and belt. Let's start with the dress. It's divided into the skirt hem, body, chest piece, sleeves, sewing and accessories. The skirt hem starts with backward loop cast-on method. First, knit back and forth, then knit in rounds. You'll need to switch colors during the process. Please watch as I demonstrate the exact knitting technique. Casting on and row 1. The method is similar to casting on and row 1 for legs. Pay attention. You only need to use one thread of yarn here. Start by leaving a tail of about 15 cm. Everyone refer to the chart to complete it. The swatch has fewer starting stitches. It's mainly demonstrating the technique. Next, work row 2. The chart shows a purl stitch key. Knit the stitches. Finish this row. Row 2 is completed. For the following rows 3 to 4, follow the same method as rows 1 to 2. Work all knit stitches. Everyone complete it. After completing, work row 5. This row requires creating a pattern. First, work 2 knit stitches. Then rotate the left needle from front to back for 1 round. The fabric will also rotate accordingly. Then work 3 knit stitches. Continue to rotate the left needle from front to back for 1 round. The fabric will follow and rotate. Then work 3 knit stitches. Rotate again. The piece forms this pattern. Follow the method of working 3 knit stitches, and then rotating once. Finish this row. After the last rotating, work knit stitches with the remaining loops. Row 5 is now complete. Since you will need to switch colors later, leave a yarn tail of about 10 cm and cut the yarn. Then start row 6. Watch the chart from right to left. Take the new yarn. Mind that 2 threads of the new yarn are held together for knitting. The sample swatch continues with 1 thread for demonstration purposes. Make a loose knot with the yarn. Keep the right side of the fabric facing you. Join the yarn on the right side. Insert into the first loop. Pick up the loop. Adjust the size of the loop. Joining the yarn is done, and complete one knit stitch. Continue with knit stitches. Finish knitting about 1/3 of the way. Take the second needle and continue knitting. For the remaining 1/3, switch to the third needle and keep knitting. The 6th row is now complete. Continue with the 7th round. Shape the needles into a triangle. Pay attention that the bottom doesn't twist. Start knitting from the position of the yarn tail. Take out the 4th needle. Knit all stitches. After finishing the first stitch, this is where 2 needles meet. So you need to tighten the yarn a bit more. Otherwise, the finished product won't look very nice. Continue knitting all the loops on this needle. After completing, you'll reach the boundary. Keep going with your knitting. Pay attention to the junction of the needles. The first stitch needs to be tightened. Continue knitting downward. Keep going until you finish the loops on this needle on the right side of the yarn tail. Take a look, everyone. This is what it looks like after completing the 7th round. You can gently pull to tighten the yarn tails, where you started and joined the yarn. When counting rounds later, the first braid of the color change will be on the 6th row. Start matching and counting rounds from here. For the remaining rounds of the skirt hem, continue knitting in rounds from right to left. And perform decreases at the corresponding rounds. Everyone can finish the required number of rounds by referring to the chart. Pay attention to the junction of the needles. The first stitch needs to be tightened. That concludes the explanation of the skirt hem knitting. Next, we'll move on to the body section. Here, I'll demonstrate with a swatch. Start normal knitting from the first row. After completing the corresponding number of stitches from the previous round. On the left side of the fabric piece at the back. Pick up stitches along one line that has a purl texture. Insert the hook and pick up the stitch. Complete one stitch. Continue picking up 3 more stitches to the left. After completing, place the loops on the right needle. You can use a stitch marker to mark this row. Continue with the second row. Turn the fabric over. Work the corresponding purl stitches. Finish this row. Complete the overlapping section. The second row is now done. For the following rows, refer to the chart and knit back and forth. Decrease stitches at the corresponding positions. End the last row on the wrong side. Everyone complete it. That concludes the explanation of the body. Next, let's learn about the chest piece. Take a look at the finished product. The chest piece is divided into the left chest piece, front chest piece, and right chest piece. The left and right on the charts refer to the actual wearing position. Following the body section. Start by knitting the first row of the chest piece. Then knit the right chest piece. After completion, proceed to knit the front chest piece and left chest piece in sequence. Please watch as I demonstrate the specific knitting method. Start by knitting the first row of the chest piece. This row is knitted on the right side. Refer to the chart and knit the corresponding number of knit stitches. This completes the first row of the right shoulder part. Transfer the loops of the right shoulder part to a spare needle like this one. You can place a stitch marker to mark the row number. Next, we'll work on binding off for the armpit area. Refer to the chart. Count the number of stitches that need to be bound off. Place a stitch marker on the left side to mark it. Start by knitting 2 stitches. Then use the left needle to pick up the previous stitch and cover the next stitch and slip it off. This binds off 1 stitch. Continue with 1 knit stitch. Then use the left needle to pick up the previous stitch and cover the next stitch. That binds off another stitch. Next, repeat this process, binding off stitches knitwise, until you've bound off all the loops to the right of the stitch marker. After completing this, you'll also need to bind off this remaining loop. Refer to the chart. Start with 1 knit stitch. You can now remove the stitch marker. Bind off 1 stitch. This loop is the first stitch of the first row of the front chest piece. Continue knitting the corresponding number of stitches for the front chest piece. After finishing, transfer the loops onto a single needle. You can double check. Ensure that the loops on the left side of the bound off stitch on the right match the stitch count of the front chest piece. Don't forget to place a stitch marker as a mark. Continue binding off for the armpit. Do it in the same way as before. Also bind off the loops on the right side of the stitch marker. Knit 1 stitch. Bind off 1 stitch. Keep knitting stitches to finish this row. Don't forget to place a stitch marker as a mark. Check that the stitch count corresponds to the right chest piece. That's how you complete the first row. For the following rows of the right chest piece, continue knitting back and forth. Decrease stitches on the armpit side. Refer to the chart to complete it. and the last row on the wrong side. Finally, you need to bind off. Here, I'll demonstrate with a sample swatch. First, knit 1 stitch and purl 1 stitch. Lift the previous stitch with the left needle, and pass it over the next stitch. Then slip it off the right needle. This will bind off 1 stitch. Knit the 3rd stitch. Use your left hand to pinch the bottom of the yarn loop on the right needle. Take the needle out. Place the needle above the yarn and then reinsert it back into the loop. Knit 1 stitch. Bind off 1 stitch. Continue knitting downward. Purl the 4th stitch. Pinch the bottom of the loop. Take the needle out and place it below the yarn, then reinsert it back into the loop. Purl 1 stitch. Bind off 1 stitch. Follow the alternating order of 1 knit stitch and 1 purl stitch. Repeat the process to bind off stitches. Pay attention to always adjust the position of the yarn by moving the right needle. When knitting stitches, the yarn stays below. When purling stitches, the yarn stays above. Follow the demonstration here and continue knitting until the end of the row. Now there is only 1 loop left. Stretch the loop larger directly. Then remove the needle. Leave about 10 centimeters and cut off. Thread it through the loop. Tighten it. A texture like this forms on the top of the fabric. That's how you finish binding off. Thread the yarn tail into a darning needle. Follow the texture on the wrong side to weave in the ends. Everyone has now completed this part. This completes the right chest piece. Now continue with the second row of the front chest piece. We will work this row on the wrong side. Take the corresponding yarn and make a slip knit. Insert the right needle from back to front through the first loop. Pick up the loop. Make an adjustment. Joining the yarn is complete, and 1 purl stitch has been finished. Continue to work and purl across this row. Pay attention that the yarn stays above. Row 2 is now complete. The rows followed the front chest piece. Continue knitting back and forth. Begin decreasing on both sides. End the last row on the wrong side. Then proceed with binding off. The method is identical to the one used for binding off at the end of the right chest piece. Finally, leave a tail of about 20 cm and cut the yarn. Everyone, refer to the chart to complete it. Everyone, take a look. This is what the completed front chest piece looks like. The method for the left chest piece is similar to that of the front chest piece. Row 2 joins the yarn on the wrong side. Then knit back and forth. Decrease on the side near the armpit. Lastly, finish with binding off. The method is the same as before. At the end, leave a tail of about 20 cm and cut the yarn. Everyone, you just need to follow the chart to complete it. Everyone, take a look. This is what the completed left chest piece looks like. Next, let's learn how to make the sleeves. Take a look at the finished product. There are 2 sleeves in total. Both use the backward loop for casting on. Then knit back and forth. You will need to switch colors during the knitting process. Please watch as I demonstrate the specific knitting technique. For casting on and rows ONE tilde FOUR. The method is similar to rows ONE tilde FOUR of the skirt hem. Mindful to leave a 15 cm tail at the beginning. Everyone, follow the chart to complete it. Next, knit row 5. Start with 2 knit stitches. Then rotate the needle. This will create the pattern. Then knit 3 more stitches. Rotate. Follow the method of knitting 3 stitches and then rotating. Complete this row. The technique is identical to the 5th row of the skirt hem. Row 5 is now finished. You will need to switch colors next. Leave about 10 cm and fasten off the yarn. Take out the new yarn after that. Be mindful to combine 2 threads of the new yarn together while knitting. For the demonstration, we will continue using 1 thread of yarn. Start by leaving a tail of about 30 cm. Tie a knot on the end where you break the yarn. Make sure it's tight against the fabric piece. Continue knitting the next row with the new yarn. Row 6 is now complete. Keep knitting back and forth as before. You'll need to decrease stitches in the last few rows. The final row should end on the wrong side. Everyone, refer to the chart to finish it up. Finally, you need to bind off stitches. Bind off all the loops knitwise. Leave a tail of about 30 cm and cut the yarn. Thread it through the remaining loop. That's 1 sleeve completed. You can knit the other sleeve in the same way. Next, we'll sew the pieces together. First, take out the skirt hem piece. Pass the starting tail through the darning needle. Sew up the opening. Try to keep the texture looking nice. Here, I'll demonstrate with a sample swatch. The pattern is random. Then, make sure to weave in all the yarn tails on the wrong side. Everyone should complete this part. Next, thread the reserved yarn tail from the front chest piece into the sewing needle. Sew together the front chest piece and the right chest piece, joining the 4 stitches near the armpit. With their wrong sides facing each other, make sure the right side faces out. Pick up and sew at the approximate position below the bound-off stitches. Separately bind off 4 stitches. Take the yarn tail to the wrong side. If there are any unappealing spots along the edge, you can sew them slightly for adjustment. Then, weave in the yarn tails properly. This spot is now sewn together. It forms an armhole like this. Use the reserved yarn tail from the left chest piece. Sew together the 4 stitches near the armpit between the front and left chest pieces. Sew it together in the same way. Make sure you complete this part. Weave in all other yarn tails from joining as well. Next, sew the sleeves together. Use the beginning or ending yarn tail to sew a few rows of the original yarn together. Finally, weave in the tail of the original yarn inside the fabric. Then use the reserved tail of the new yarn to sew up the remaining side edges. The method is the same as the main part sewing technique. Sew this area evenly. Take the yarn tail to the wrong side and weave it in. Make sure you complete this step. Then thread the reserved tail into a sewing needle. Place the seam at the bind-off position under the armhole of the chest piece. Center and align accordingly. You can use stitch markers to secure a few points if needed. Ensure the fabric pieces align evenly. Start picking up the thread below the corresponding bind-off stitches for sewing. Pick up the small horizontal lines on the side edge of the chest piece for sewing. Don't pull the yarn too tight. Maintain the fabric's elasticity. Since the side edges don't match stitch by stitch, you can skip one position on the longer side if necessary. Ensure both fabric pieces lie flat and align properly. The sleeve side is also sewn by picking up the small horizontal lines. After finishing, take the tail to the wrong side. Weave it in following the texture. That's how you complete the sewing for one side of the sleeve. Sew the other sleeve using the same method. Make sure to weave in all remaining yarn tails. That concludes the explanation of the sewing process. Finally, let's learn about the accessories. Take a look at the finished product. The accessories include snap fastener, pearls, and lace trim. Please watch as I demonstrate the specific making method. Start by sewing on the snap fastener. Take out the yarn used for the chest piece. Thread one yarn through the needle. Fold it in half. The sample swatch is in random colors. Tie off the yarn tail. Snap fastener consists of the socket and stud. Sew them on the outermost edges of both left and right chest pieces. At the overlapping position on top. Make sure the right chest piece is underneath. Start by sewing one side first. Pay attention to the position and direction of the snap fastener. Don't sew through too many layers to prevent it from not being able to fasten. After completing, tie a knot and weave in the ends. Sew the other half on the corresponding position of the other side. Mind that the positions don't get reversed. Everyone can now finish it up. That concludes the explanation for snap fastener. Next, we'll sew the purls. Let's take a look at the finished product. The purls are placed in the middle of the skirt hem. There are 2 circles. The bottom circle is about 2 cm away from the edge. The interval between purls is about 4 cm. The space between the 2 circles is approximately 3 cm. On the upper circle, the purls are spaced about 3.5 cm apart. The specific positions and intervals can also be adjusted according to your preference, as long as they are evenly and staggered distributed. Next, I will demonstrate the sewing method with a sample swatch. Take the sewing thread and insert it through the needle. Fold it in half. Tie a knot at the tail of the yarn. Start by sewing the bottom circle first. Begin securing the thread on the wrong side at the corresponding position. The sample placement is random. Secure a purl at the centered position on the right side. You can sew it one more time for extra security, to make it more secure. Bring the needle to the wrong side. Sew the next purl at the corresponding interval. Pay attention to keeping the carrying yarn tension close to the fabric. Repeat this process to sew the entire round. Everyone complete it this way. For the next round, carry the yarn across to the corresponding position. Mind that the positions of purls between the 2 rounds are staggered. Continue sewing until you finish this round. Weave in the ends at the end. That concludes the purl section. Finally, sew on the lace trim. Take the thread in the same way as sewing the pearls. Turn the skirt hem so that the wrong side is facing out. Locate the opening position on the body. Place the right side of the lace trim with clear texture against the wrong side of the fabric piece. Align the edge of the lace with the corresponding edge of the piece. Leave about 1.5 cm of the lace exposed. On the top edge, fold it down by around 0.5 cm. Sew along this line to match and sew together. Start by sewing an extra stitch to secure in place. Pay attention to adjusting the position as you sew. Make sure not to sew crooked. Avoid showing any sewing traces on the right side. Don't pull the thread too tight. Keep the fabric piece flat while sewing. The sample here has larger gaps between stitches. In practice, you can sew a bit tighter if you prefer. If you want the lace trim to be fluffier, you can also sew in slight pleats for more volume. Continue sewing downward. After finishing one round of sewing, sew the side edges together as well. Trim off the excess parts. Fold the sides to match up. Sew along the edge. Tie a knot when you're done. That's how the lace trim is sewn on. Tidy up the dress. The dress section is now complete. Next, let's learn about pants. Take a look at the finished product. Use the backward loop cast-on method to start. First, knit in rounds for the waistband. Then work back and forth for the pant legs. Finally, sew together. Add decorations afterward. The new stitch used here is the yarn over. Please watch as I demonstrate the specific knitting technique. Start with casting on. The method is the same as before. I've already prepared the starting stitches in advance. Then work the first round. Start with 2 knit stitches. Follow with 2 purl stitches. When switching from knit to purl, mindful to bring the yarn to the top. Then do 2 knit stitches. Pay attention to the position of the yarn, otherwise, it's easy to end up with extra stitches. Continue with 2 purl stitches. Follow the pattern of alternating 2 knit stitches and 2 purl stitches. Continue working downwards. After completing each 1/3 section, switch to the new knitting needle. Once done, the first round is complete. Move on to the second round. Arrange the needles into a triangular shape. Be careful not to twist the fabric piece below. Refer to the chart and work the corresponding stitch techniques. At the junction, remember to tighten the yarn. Finish the loops on the right side of the yarn tail. This completes the second round. For the following rounds of waistband, simply follow the chart to work. Be mindful to increase stitches at the corresponding positions. Take a look, everyone. This is the sample swatch after completing the waistband. Now move on to knitting the pant legs. Continue with the previous yarn. Start by knitting the first leg. Refer to the chart and knit the corresponding number of stitches. After completing this, the first row is done. You can transfer the loops from these two needles and adjust them onto one needle. Place a marker to mark it. For rows 2 through 10, work back and forth on this needle. Knit on the right side and purl on the wrong side. On row 11, you'll need to decrease stitches. For rows 12 to 14, knit all stitches. Refer to the chart to complete it. Next, knit row 15. Start with 3 knit stitches. One yarn over stitch. Bring the yarn from front to back around the right needle. This will create an extra loop on the right needle. The 1 yarn over stitch is now done. Continue with 3 more knit stitches. One yarn over stitch. Bring the yarn from front to back around the right needle. The yarn over is complete. Continue knitting according to the pattern of 3 knit stitches followed by 1 yarn over stitch. After completing the last knit stitch, row 15 is done. Continue with the final row. Purl the corresponding stitches. When you encounter a yarn over stitch, simply pick up the loop and purl it. After finishing, bind off. The method is identical to the bind-off method used at the end of the chest piece. Then, leave a tail of about 20 cm and cut the yarn. That's it, one pant leg is now knitted. Begin the first row of the other pant leg on the right side. Start by joining the yarn. Insert into the first loop. Pick up. Complete the knit stitch and finish joining the yarn. Then refer to the chart and continue knitting. The first row is complete. You can also transfer the loops to a single straight needle. Then continue knitting back and forth. The row techniques for the remaining rows are identical to the previous leg, completed in the same way. Finally, leave a tail of about 20 cm and cut the yarn. That concludes the explanation of the pant legs. Next, we will sew them together. Here, I'll demonstrate using a sample swatch. Only a portion has been knitted. Thread the yarn tail into a yarn needle. Start by sewing a bit at the bind-off edge. Ensure the texture is attractive. Then sew using the same method as for the main part. After finishing the pant leg area, you can also sew a few stitches in the crotch area to secure it. Make sure there are no holes. Finally, weave the yarn tails to the wrong side and secure them. Sew the other pant leg in the same way. Tuck all remaining yarn tails securely on the wrong side. Everyone can now complete it. Finally, make the decorations. Take a piece of corresponding yarn. Thread 2 strands into a darning needle. The sample swatch will have random colors. Start from the waistband section. On the side where the starting yarn tail is located, round the position of the third round. Insert the hook in the middle of the purl stitch. Pull the thread from below the knit stitch. Start by leaving a yarn tail. Continue to pull the thread from below the knit stitch. Repeat this process until you finish this round. Finally, draw through where you inserted your hook. Adjust it a little. You can try it on the main part. Pay attention to the right side and wrong side. Adjust to a proper tension. Tie a bow. The width is about 3 cm. Trim off the excess yarn tail. Next, at the pant leg part. Between 2 purl stitches. Skip about 2 stitches and pull the thread through. Tie a bow on the same side. The width is approximately 1.5 centimeter. Everyone can now complete it. Up to this point, the explanation of the pants is finished. Now let's learn how to make the shoes. Take a look at the finished product. There are 2 pieces in total. Both start with the backward loop cast on method. Work in rounds. After completion, add decorations. Please watch me demonstrate the specific knitting method. Start by casting on. Note, the finished product uses 2 threads of yarn held together for knitting. The sample will continue to be demonstrated with 1 thread of yarn. Then work the first round. Purl all stitches. Work 8 stitches onto the first needle. Distribute the remaining stitches evenly onto the other 2 needles. After completing, arrange the needles into a triangle shape. Continue with the second round. Purl all stitches again. The second round is complete. For the following rounds 3 to 16, you can follow the chart and work in rounds. Then proceed to the 17th row. Here, I'll demonstrate using a sample swatch. Knit 8 stitches. After completing, turn your work. Purl stitches on these 8 stitches. Then proceed to the 19th row. Pay attention to decrease stitches at both ends. On the 20th row, work evenly in purl stitches. On the 21st row, continue to decrease stitches at both ends. Next, work the 22nd row. First, purl the corresponding stitches. After completing, move to the left side edge. This is the position in the middle of the texture where you decrease twice. Pick up 2 strands from the edge at the back. You can slightly pick them a bit lower here. Just pick up the approximate position. After picking, make sure there are no holes on the bottom as much as possible. Purl 1 stitch. This adds 1 stitch. Row 22 is now completed. Next, proceed to row 23. Start with 1 slip stitch knitwise. Then knit the corresponding stitches. After completing, on the side between the 2 decrease textures on the left, pick up 2 strands and knit 1 stitch. Just get the approximate position. Similarly, this adds 1 stitch. Row 23 is now complete. Continue with row 24. Start by a slip stitch. Here, on the wrong side, knit for the purl stitches and purl for the knit stitches. Work the slip stitch purlwise, then purl the corresponding stitches. Finally, on the side, just below the decrease texture, pick up 2 strands and purl 1 stitch. Just get the approximate position. Be mindful that after picking up, try not to leave small holes underneath. Row 24 is now complete. Continue with round 25. Start by 1 slip stitch knitwise. Then continue knitting stitches. After completing, on the side just below the decrease texture, pick up 2 strands and knit a stitch. Then continue to work in rounds on the remaining 2 needles. Finish the loops on the right side of the starting yarn tail. Round 25 is now complete. This creates a raised position here. For the following rounds, continue working in rounds and decrease at the corresponding rounds. The method for decreasing has been demonstrated before. Everyone, refer to the chart to complete it. When decreasing, pay attention if there aren't enough loops on the left needle for the decrease. You can move the loops to the next needle before knitting. When only 6 stitches remain, you can transfer the loops to 2 needles and continue knitting. The number of rounds for this swatch is random. After completing the last round, 6 loops will remain. Leave a tail of about 15 cm and fasten off the yarn. Thread the yarn tail through a sewing needle. Close the opening. Pull tight. Weave in the tail following the texture. The starting tail of the yarn. Sew a little at the starting point. Then hide it inside, and secure it. Tidy up. That's how you finish one shoe. Finally, add decorations. You can use sewing thread to sew together. Take out a pom-pom. Sew a few stitches to attach it securely to the tip position. After securing it firmly, bend the shoe tip backward. Attach the side of the pom-pom to the middle front part of the shoe upper. After fixing it securely, weave in the yarn tail. That's how you complete one shoe. Make the other one using the same method. Next, let's learn how to make a hat. Take a look at the finished product. The hat starts with a backward loop cast-on method. Knit back and forth. You will need to switch colors during the process. The technique is similar to making the sleeves of the dress. Leave a 15 cm tail before starting to cast on. Create a pattern at the position of the 5th row as well. Then leave about a 10 cm tail before breaking the yarn. Before joining the yarn for the 6th row, leave around 40 cm of yarn tail for sewing up. After completing the last row, pick up loops to close the opening. Weave in the ends when you're done. Finally, use the reserved yarn tails to sew together the corresponding color sections. Refer to the chart and previous demonstrations to complete it. Lastly, add a pom-pom to the tip. Here, I'll demonstrate with a swatch. Use sewing thread to attach it. Start by securing the yarn at the tip. After confirming it's secure, sew on the pom-pom. Once it's firmly attached, weave in the ends. That concludes the tutorial for the hat. Let's move on to the collar. Here, I'll explain the method for knitting the collar using a swatch. The collar starts with a backward loop cast-on method. Work back and forth. For the first stitch of each row, follow the texture pattern. Work the slip stitch knitwise for the purl texture, and purlwise for the knit texture accordingly. Refer to the chart to complete it. During the process, you'll encounter stitch keys for slip stitch knitwise. Just match them with the slip stitch knitwise techniques I taught before. Once this section is completed, divide into 6 small corners for knitting. The method for knitting the small corners is similar to the ear knitting technique. For the first corner, continue knitting back and forth using the previous yarn. For the second corner, join the yarn on the wrong side and keep knitting. The method is similar to the way you joined the yarn in the second row of the front chest piece. The remaining corners are knitted in the same way as the second corner. After completing each corner, leave a tail of about 15 cm and cut the yarn. All yarn tails from joining and casting on should be woven in on the wrong side. Refer to the chart to complete it. Finally, add the snap fastener and pendant. Please watch as I demonstrate the specific making method. Here, I will use a small sample for the demonstration. Start by sewing on the snap fastener. Take out the stud part of the snap fastener. Place it on one end where you began your stitch. Take a piece of sewing thread and insert it into a thin needle. Fold the thread in half and tie a knot at the end. Pick up one hole and sew through it to attach the snap fastener. After securing it properly, tie off and weave in the ends. Secure the socket part of the snap fastener on the other end using the same method. Pay attention to align the right side and wrong side correctly. This way, the snap fastener is now fixed. Next, attach the pendant. Thread the yarn needle with the tail end from the corner. Pass it through the pendant. Sew it slightly with the pointed corner. Then, tie a knot on the wrong side, and weave in the ends to finish. Secure the pendants on the remaining corners using the same technique. That concludes the explanation for the collar. Next, let's make the belt. Take a look at the finished product. The belt consists of the ties. Piece 1. Piece 2, and assembly. Both pieces are started with the backward loop cast-on method. Work back and forth. Mindfully use 2 threads of yarn held together while knitting. Leave about 15 cm of yarn tail at the beginning of the ties. As you work, compare it with the main part with the dress on to ensure a good fit. Knit until it can wrap around the waist once. Pay attention to leave space for the snap fastener sewing position. At the end, leave about 15 cm of yarn tail, and close the opening directly. Piece 1 finishes with binding off. The method is identical to the one used for closing the sleeve. Leave about 20 cm of yarn tail at the ending for sewing together. Piece 2 also finishes by binding off. Then fasten off the yarn normally. All yarn tails should be woven in on the wrong side. Everyone, refer to the chart to complete it. Next, please watch me demonstrate the final assembly method. Here, I will use a small sample for demonstration. First, use the yarn tails reserved at the beginning and end of the ties. Secure half of the snap fastener separately. Make sure the right side of the fabric faces out. Don't reverse the direction of the snap fastener. Securing 1 stitch space is enough. When securing the starting point, you can slightly tighten the starting position. Then sew together the ends of piece 1. Here, I will continue to demonstrate using the small sample. Pick up the line along starting stitches and the braid of binding off. Sew them together roughly in correspondence. There are no specific requirements for the sewing method. Try to match the beginning and ending as much as possible. After completing, tie a knot and weave in the ends. The yarn tail from the starting stitch should also be woven in on the wrong side. Everyone can now finish it. Finally, cut a long yarn tail for the waistband knitting. You can hold 2 threads of yarn together. Fold it in half. Place the seam of piece 1 at the bottom center position. Tidy up the edges of the piece. Fold it. At the middle position on the top, fold into a bow shape. Then take the piece 2. Let it curl naturally. Position the right side against the folded area below. Pay attention to the centered alignment. Then wrap the yarn around the center position. Pull tight. Tie a knot on the wrong side. Next thread the longer tail into a sewing needle. Fold the tie along the snap fastener position. Sew a few stitches at the center position on one side to secure it. After securing it properly, tie the 2 ends in a double knot. Then weave in the yarn tails along the fabric. And the belt is done. Finally, put on the clothes in order. Up to this point, the entire doll has been explained. If you have any questions during the process, don't hesitate to reach us via our website. Susan's Family, supporting your handwork experience, sharing the joy of life. Thank you for watching. See you in the next episode.